All right, welcome everybody to this webinar about supporting your thyroid clients. I'm Tricia Sheehan, and my co-host is Carmen Hunter. You guys probably know one or both of us. So welcome to this meeting today, and the goal for today is just to give you lots of really great, useful, practical information on supporting your thyroid clients, because these days it seems like just about everybody has a thyroid concern in one regard or another. So what we're going to do today is Carmen's going to go first and give you her best information and tips, and I'll let her introduce herself so you understand who she is. She's totally amazing. I'm excited for those of you who don't know Carmen yet to get to know her a little bit. She's completely amazing, a very experienced coach. And then when she wraps up, I'm going to get into some information about how to improve client results using essential oils, and I'll tell you just a little bit about my background at that time. So stick around, because at the very end we'll leave some time for open Q&A. So hold on to your very best questions, and we'll get to all of them at that time. And I'll just turn it over to Carmen.
Thanks, Tricia. Hey, everybody. I know a lot of you already. I can see Deborah Blitzer. I know you, and I got to meet you in Florida at the Medical Medium Conference. How are you? There's Sandy and Robin and another Deborah. I know all you guys. So I can't see everyone, but I'm just happy to have familiar faces and new faces today. My name is Carmen Hunter. I'm the founder of the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, which is opening this September 18th. And we are going to be doing things just like we're covering today in the Institute, where we are teaching you how to more effectively work with your clients, not only with thyroid problems, but with any chronic condition or problem. And let me just say real briefly that I came to know so much about the thyroid because I went a good 10 years without being diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. 21 doctors was the max that I saw before I finally figured it out. So you can only imagine how many treatments and doctors and how much money went out of our pockets to just figure out, and I say just figure out this simple condition because it's anything but simple. But the diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis actually is a very simple diagnosis for the most part. You just have to know, doctors just have to know how to do this and why to do it. And then we have to have clients that actually understand how important it is to take their questions a little bit further. And that's where I think health coaches really fit in here, that we are not that doctor. We're not going to diagnose them with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, but we are going to share information with them that kind of nudges or shoves them in the direction of their doctor, who can then solidify the diagnosis for them. So I'm all about, I'm not a nudger. If you know me at all, I'm a very assertive, go-getting kind of person, especially when it comes to helping people. And helping coaches understand this topic is super important to me, because no one should ever have to go through what I went through. And it's happening right now in this very moment as we are on this webinar today. Someone is being sent out of the doctor's office with a prescription for T4 and told them to live with it till their thyroid dies, which is inadequate care in my opinion. So I have written a 66-page guide. I thought it was 52 pages. I need to change my marketing because it has grown to 66 pages, just solely on understanding the thyroid from a very basic point of view, but also takes you nice and deep as well. So I'm going to pull that over here in just a moment and share some really good, significant pieces with you that is going to help you understand what it means to work with thyroid clients, but also I think to maybe recognize thyroid problems in a person that is not well, that may not already be diagnosed with thyroid problems. So let's just say that people can go a decade or more, sometimes 2 decades, as 1 decade with me, with symptoms and problems and still not be diagnosed. So if you have a chronic condition client, I want you to tuck in the back of your mind, someone who has had problems for more than 3 months. A chronic condition is defined as something that is persisting for 3 months or more, such as pain, depression, things that don't feel normal in their body or feel right. And they have had no luck at all getting a diagnosis of anything. It is very, very possible that the thyroid is affecting them. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's really not the thyroid that's the problem too, but we're going to get into the guide in just a moment. But I'm actually going to just give you guys a little bit of a free gift today. If you don't already have it, many of you already do have the thyroid intake form. So I'm going to pull it over here and I'm going to share my screen. Do I have that ability, Tricia, I think? Yep. Okay, and I'll give this to Tricia and she can send it out to you guys, but it's been updated a little bit. So if you got it last year or the year before, it's a little bit newer. And this is obviously my old logo, but I think it's really important, if you know you're working with someone with a thyroid problem, to have an intake form that is geared towards that problem. Now, you can have a very extensive intake form also, like I have. Mine's 22 pages. But I also like to kind of, if you know you're focusing on the thyroid, I like to hone in on it a little bit deeper and get some stuff up front so that we can have really effective and efficient sessions with our client. So instead of sitting across from a client for an hour and a half saying, when were you diagnosed by your doctor? Are you currently under the care of a doctor? Okay, you send this ahead of time with to your client that you know has a thyroid problem, or you think has a thyroid problem, and ask them to send it back to you so that when you start working with them, you already have this information, this powerful information, and you can focus a little bit tighter on the things that you need to focus on and make better use of your time, if that makes sense to you guys. So when you get this, just note that you are able to change anything you want on here. Put your logo on here, use it with your clients. If you're not comfortable with some of the terminology about medication, change it. It's totally up to you. But just notice that the main thing here is just getting a little bit of background on this client and finding out where are they in their quest to get well from thyroid problems, right? I also like to know how people are feeling in that moment and what their anxiety level is about their thyroid problem, because many people get diagnosed with this and then the next thing you know, they think it's a death sentence, or their doctor has said, you just have to live with it. And for me, to me, I've been told that many times, and I think that's just I don't like to be told that. To me, that's a death sentence. Don't tell me I'm going to be sick forever, okay? So we are able to, as coaches, give our clients that hope that this is not forever, maybe, or that they can reach some optimal health, okay, whether they have thyroid problems or not. So just kind of scrolling through, you guys are going to get a copy of that. Make sure that you have your own client agreements or disclaimers, and that's just my disclaimer to you, that this is mine, that goes with what I do, and I encourage everyone to have their own. All right, does that make sense, Trisha? And I'll just, you flag at me and wave at me, and I'll see you if there's anything that I'm, going out of scope about or I'm not explaining enough. Also, you guys, I'm a fast talker because I have a lot of information I want to share with you. So Trisha's making the replay available, and if I'm going way too fast, just say hold up, and I'll happily try to slow it down for you. So as I go through this guide, I just want to remind you guys that this is basically a guide that was written on, ended up being about, I want to say 17 years of experience, give or take, of my own experience and my own research. I was the kind of person that once I found out that something could be wrong with me, I took it to the 9th degree, and I learned as much as I could possibly learn about everything that had to do with the problem with my body, because I was trying to figure it all out. So you can imagine when I found out that I had Hashimoto's, if I was told I had plantar fasciitis with my foot, and I studied the anatomy of the foot to learn the nerves and the muscles and the tendons and everything that went into plantar fasciitis, what did I do with this gland? I took it way beyond just knowing that it's just a gland that controls our metabolic rate. I took it way further. So just know that what I'm sharing with you is based on my experience and research. Things change every day. So if you happen to see something on here and you're like, wait, I heard last week that was that. I understand that things change. Send me a message. I'm happy to look into it and make changes as well. But I can't rewrite the guide every day. So just know that some things may evolve as time goes on. So one of the very first things I think is important to understand so that you can share with your client is where the thyroid is. And it blows my mind how many people don't have any idea where it is. I've had people tell me it's in their back before, because they were told that's where their kidneys are, their adrenals are there. Well, why wouldn't the thyroid be in their back? Well, because it's not. It's right here. And I'm going to show you guys a picture, okay? Just to solidify this in your mind, if you've never seen a picture of the actual gland, it is right here in the front of our throat. And it is this little guy right here, this red gland. Some people say left lobe, some say right lobe, some say left gland, some say right gland. It is still the thyroid gland as a whole, and it wraps around the trachea. Okay, very intimately connected with that part of our body. The more important thing to understand about this thyroid, about the thyroid gland, is that there is literally a receptor for thyroid hormone, okay, on virtually every single cell in the body. And I mean every single cell, your fingernails, your skin, in your brain, your eyebrows, your toenails, the layers of your epidermis, like everything in the body almost has a receptor for thyroid hormone. So let's just think about this. Some of the main complaints that people have are, oh, my hair's falling out, right? Or my feet are cold, the peripheral parts of my body. Some people may see that their butt cheeks are cold because that's considered a peripheral part of the body. Blood flow slows, the peripheral parts of our body start to get cold, cold hands and feet, eyebrows thin, all of those things are very common. However, what we can sometimes forget is that you can have any symptom and it can be related to the thyroid slowing down. Anything. I never rule out anything. I had someone say, well, I don't have weight gain, but I've got this pain on my knee. Okay, well, that could be your thyroid. It literally could. I had no hair loss, no weight gain, no fatigue, none of that. Even my eyebrows were full, my hair was growing, but I had such terrible, terrible pain in my feet and my joints that I could hardly function some days, where I would get up and I would have to literally move my arms in and out just to get out of bed in the morning, and it turned out to be thyroid. So never discount that anything could be causing someone's problems when it comes to the thyroid. And I am going to scroll through, so I hope I don't give you guys any kind of vertigo, but there are key points in the guide that I want to share with you. So when we talk about, the thyroid, some people say it's a master regulator. Others see the hypothalamus or the pituitary as that master. The HPA, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, all kind of work together, and the thyroid is tucked nicely in there. So when we think about it as a whole, we think, yes, it could be the master regulator, but we know for sure it is the master metabolic regulator, which is what I was just talking about. So we have to have metabolic energy. So I don't want you to think that I'm talking about your metabolism and burning fat. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about systemic, overall, head-to-toe metabolic health that provides the energy for all of those things I was just talking about, sex drive and hair and nail growth and all of those things. It is the master driver of all those things, okay? So just remember that it is also one of the most misunderstood and mistreated glands in medicine today. Now, when we talk about the thyroid slowing down, or we talk about having Hashimoto's, or someone says, oh, I have hypothyroidism and I take medicine, and they're sent out the door, like I was telling you earlier, the problem with that is that we're treating the symptom, because what happens with the thyroid slows down, that is a symptom of a bigger problem. Just like when people say, oh, I have adrenal fatigue. No, you don't have adrenal fatigue. Your adrenals are slowing down and they're tired because something else is happening. That's the same thing with the thyroid, excuse me. So what I like to tell people is that the thyroid is a victim of a bigger problem. So when we stop thinking about the thyroid as the problem, then we are then like, oh my gosh, we open our eyes and we think, so what is the bigger problem? And that helps us to tell our clients, listen, your thyroid is probably responding to something else. And what we're going to do together is we're going to investigate, we're going to dig down, and we're going to find out what is causing this. What's happening here? Is it toxic? Is it the toxic environment? Is it something you're using in your hair? Is it what you're eating? That is the goal with health coaches, is to help their clients investigate and find out why this is happening. Not necessarily just throw Band-Aids at the thyroid. That's not what we want to do. And I want you to think, as you're learning, and some of you are seasoned coaches, but just remember that when we're talking to our clients about adrenal fatigue as well, remember when I'm saying that the adrenals are also a victim of something bigger. They are not the problem. The thyroid is not the problem. They are being treated as if they are the problem. And that's where people get stuck, in my opinion. We cannot stop with the thyroid with medication or just treating what might fix the thyroid. We have to find out why it's happening. So we've already talked about thyroid symptoms, but I just want to say this. I coined this term, the paper versus person syndrome. When doctors trust labs more than they trust the patient's symptoms get dismissed and their symptoms continue. This is the biggest problem I see today. A client can say to their doctor, but I feel this way. And the doctor says, but your labs say this. And then the client says, but no, I feel terrible. This is what's going on. But your TSH says this. And then they leave and they're hopeless and they feel terrible. And they don't realize there are other labs that they could be getting that could prove the point that they are not okay. All right. And we're gonna cover that a little bit today. Now, Tricia, do you want to pause for questions now, or do you want to wait and just kind of let me keep going?
I'll leave it up to you. I was kind of thinking wait to the end, but maybe if somebody has a burning question, they can put it in the chat and I'll alert you if there's a burning question. Okay,
that sounds good. Okay, so we're not going to focus on, there's two different types of thyroid problems, Graves and Hashimoto's. We're not going to go into detail on all of them. Just know that there are autoimmune diseases that are causing, that are setting out an attack on the thyroid. And we're going to touch on Hashimoto's more because that's the one that's more common. In fact, 90 to 97% of people who have hypothyroidism have Hashimoto's. So when somebody says to me, and I cannot tell you how often this happens, they come and they say, oh, I just have hypothyroidism. My doctor says I don't have Hashimoto's. Again, remember that it can take anywhere from 10 years to 2 decades for antibodies to even show up. So Hashimoto's could be happening without antibodies even showing up. Not only that, But negative tests for antibodies are possible if the immune system is not powerful or strong enough to produce antibodies. So you could literally have a negative antibody TPO, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, and still have Hashimoto's. You could actually have hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism at the same time, which is absolutely miserable. I've been there. Talk about misery. I mean, you're 122 pounds one day and the next day you're 136. I mean, it's a miserable, miserable roller coaster to be on. So if somebody tells you that they don't have it, I would say, you know what? I think that adding the thyroid peroxidase antibody test, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, but to your labs every time you go in for like a general checkup would be a good idea for you to talk to your doctor about. Okay, so remember, we're always trying to refer out to in our language, referring them to their doctor to have a conversation. Even if we're providing them, you guys, with all this great information, you know, we're tucking those little seeds in their mind. We want them to take it to the doctor and have a conversation so we don't have to worry about being liable for what they do. Okay, all right. Okay, let me scroll past the Graves. Let's see here. Let's sit on Hashimoto's for just a moment. Again, I've already mentioned that 90 to 97% or more of people with hypothyroidism are producing antibodies to thyroid tissue. Not everyone's being tested. And another reason that a lot of people aren't being tested for this is because, and this statement makes me want to scream, it's not going to change the course of treatment. That's what doctors will tell people. So if a client goes in and says, you know what, I was told by my health coach, which I usually tell my clients, don't tell them you're working with a health coach. If they're a conventionally minded doctor or they're allopathically minded, don't say, my health coach says. Just go in and say, I've really been doing a lot of work and research and studying some medical journals, and I would like this test, okay? Because when you throw the word health coach in there, sadly, right now, we're not mainstream enough to be credible with our medical terminology and our understanding of certain things. So it sometimes benefits the client not to use that terminology. I mean, it's up to you, up to them, but it's just a tip I've seen over the last 7 years. It works best if they don't. But when we tell them, listen, I really think that with hypothyroidism, and my mom has it, my grandma has it, my sister has it, that there has to be an underlying autoimmune component to this. And the doctor says, well, it doesn't matter, because if you do have it, we're still going to give you the medication that's the same. It does matter. It absolutely 100% does matter, because for two reasons. Number one, many times a client that is just been hit in the face with a diagnosis of hypothyroidism, if they think that all they have to do is take a pill to have an optimal life, they're sadly mistaken, but it's a relief. Because I remember that feeling when someone said, oh, you just have to take this Armour thyroid and you'll be fine for the rest of your life, right? Wrong. Because you still haven't fixed the reason why the attack is happening. So instead of saying, oh, it's not going to change anything, here's your Synthroid or your T4, the doctor that we want to work with says, you know what, let's support the thyroid and let's talk about how to go about figuring out what's going on. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that a lot of doctors don't even understand that hypothyroidism is an autoimmune attack, and they don't believe that you can do anything about it with food and lifestyle. And we've found that to be 100% untrue, that you can't do anything about it. Okay, so when someone is told that they have it, it sometimes can be helpful to see it on paper. Elevated antibodies. Some might be like, okay, all right, that's going up. Something needs to change in my life, as opposed to just being given a simple pill to change things. Does that make sense? Like, we sometimes need to see that we've had a heart attack to know that we should start exercising, right? Okay, same thing with the antibodies. Okay, so let's see here. I know many of you already have this guide because you've taken classes with me, or you've been a student or something like that. So I am doing some more updates in the next couple of months. So just know that if you've got the guide, and I do the updates, you get it free, so just ask me for it, okay? Just send me a message. All right, so let's look at the lab test that our client should be asking for. That would be a better picture, a bigger picture of what's going on with them. So a TSH, and I'm not gonna go through every single one of these, is the gold standard according to allopathic medicine. It's thyroid stimulating hormone. Really, it doesn't tell us what's going on with the thyroid. It tells us what's going on from the pituitary to the thyroid. Well, that's all good and fine to know if the pituitary is working right, but what about the thyroid? How do we know how much hormone is being put into our bloodstream for our bodies to use and get into the receptors of our cells? How do we know what's happening if we don't have a marker of the free thyroid hormones that are in our blood? So when I say free, I mean they're not bound to a protein. They're out there free, ready for our cells to grab and take up for energy. So just think about that in your mind. A hormone that is bound to something is not free for us to take and use. If it's free floating out in our blood, our cells are able to quickly uptake that energy and create hair and nails and a libido and all of those great things that we need to be metabolically healthy from head to toe. All right, so knowing what's available in our blood can be really helpful for us. Not only does it say, yes, you are converting your free thyroid hormone, T4, into your fuel of T3. Okay, so I'm going to back up on that in a minute, but we can see, our clients can see that is happening. Now, let's back up on labs for just a second, because I know people can kind of think I'm spinning off into no man's land, but these are the very basics of thyroid hormones. So free T4 is free thyroxine, okay, thyroxine. That is a storage hormone. It really doesn't do a whole lot of anything until it's turned into free T3, which is your triiodithyronine, which I always screw that word up, but I got it today. That is the fuel that goes into the car that drives your metabolic energy. So think about it that way. So think about your body as the car, and it's sitting at a gas pump. Okay, and we know that the free T4 is in the gas pump, but it's not doing our body any good, is it? Where our car sits there, the tank is over here, we're just sitting there until something goes in there and removes that nozzle, which is the conversion part, and puts that gas in our car, in our body, in our tank, that turns into T3, that allows us to drive away. Does that make sense? Terrible analogy, cars and gas tanks, but it's powerful because that's exactly what T3 is. It is fuel for our cells. So when a doctor does these tests, many times they don't know what to do with it. They don't understand what it means to be functionally healthy and what those ranges may mean. So if you have a client that is lucky enough to get these labs done, just know that a TSH functional range can be anywhere from 0.5 to 2.5. But you're always going back to how the person feels. I feel best at a 1.5. I'm at a 2.7 right now because I'm under a lot of stress and I can feel it. A lot of people don't feel good unless they're under 1.0. So don't use that as a hard, like you must be at 1.0. Ask the person, how are you feeling? You know, oh, great energy. I feel fabulous. So you're at 2.5. Make a note of that, right? So when it comes to the free ranges, being at the top 25% of those ranges is usually how people feel they feel the best. And I want to tell you this too. Remember, when people get their labs done and they come back from a conventional doctor, and the doctor says everything looks normal, okay? Everything looks normal, looks great. And say those ranges are really low, the free ranges are low, and the TSH is little over 3. Those labs that they're giving them and saying they look great are they're being taken from people who are not well. So when you think about it, I want my body to be compared to a well person. What does a healthy person's free T4 and free T3 look like? What does their TSH look like? All right, well, what's mine? Compare it to them. Don't compare me to the sickest person that's carrying 100 pounds around and can't sleep, because that's what conventional medicine is used to doing. So just remember that. We want to be compared to functionally healthy people, not conventionally sick people. All right, so there's that TPO and TGAB antibody that I was telling you that can sometimes show up negative. That's something that needs repeated testing, as time goes on. I wouldn't get obsessive about it. I know a lot of people, clients and coaches say, oh, well, it's up 10 points, or it's up 20. Okay, so a couple things to think about. Antibodies can rise in what's called a healing response. So sometimes when the immune system kicks back in and those antibodies start to go up, it's not necessarily a horrible thing. It might be telling us, look, your immune system is healthier than it was before because you've done all these changes. So just keep in mind, check it again later, but don't obsess over it. It's not, I've seen antibodies at 2,000 before, and I've seen a TSH of 100. And that girl was sick, and she was still working, and she was still trying to exercise, but had no idea how bad her health was until she went in and got her free hormones tested. And they literally almost hospitalized her because of how bad her numbers were. She's fine now, back down to normal, lost her weight, feels fabulous, but she needed serious intervention. So just know that things can go really crazy out of control, but it doesn't really usually mean anything. You just got to get some help. All right, one of the most skipped tests is the ultrasound, and it blows my mind. It blows my mind how many people don't have an ultrasound when they have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. It can literally show you what's going on it's a picture of your thyroid. So we want to know how much of the tissue is actually destroyed, how much is left healthy. Because if you have healthy thyroid tissue, you're still putting out thyroid hormone. So when you go to the doctor and they say, oh, you have Hashimoto's, I'm going to put you on a dose of thyroid medicine that matches what your body should be doing. How do you know what the body's doing if you don't know what condition the thyroid is in, right? So the next thing you know, that person is taking way too much medication. It's wrong medication. They're not converting it and they feel worse, all right? There's so much to know about the thyroid. It's like, this is like I've taught this class in a 6-hour increment before. So you guys are like getting like the flash, fast-paced deal. But these are the pieces that I think are going to start coming your way as far as understanding that there's so much more to a picture when it comes to labs, and understanding why it's important that the client feels empowered to go to that doctor and say, I'm sorry, but that TSH is not enough for me. Because it can literally mean 1 month, 6 months, or a year of suffering to a week. You know what I mean? If we can give them those tools and we can help them understand, we can really help them. So I'm not going to go over what to do with the labs because it's lengthy, but I want to, and I'm going to go over my 30 minutes, Trisha. Why do I say 30 minutes? I don't think I've ever done anything in 30 minutes except a CrossFit workout. Seriously. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking because there's so much in my head, but I'm going to probably go over about 10 minutes. Is that okay? Okay. All right. And I want to talk about the Masters of Mimicry, which I also gave you the download for that. So you can share if you want to also include that. It's a little infographic, just kind of tells you that when people come to us and they say that they have thyroid problems and they have hypothyroidism and they're sure of it and that's what their doctor said, yet they don't feel better and they've been on medicine and they've seen multiple doctors and whatnot. I always say to them, well, let's stop for just a second. Have you had your iron tested? What does your estrogen look like? Are you clearing your bad estrogen? What kind of condition are your adrenals in? And the reason I ask about these 3 things is because, and I've experienced all of it, again, this comes from complete experience for myself and my clients over and over and over again, that these 3 problems right here literally can have parallel symptoms with thyroid problems. So if someone says, oh, all of these symptoms are coming from my thyroid, yet they have absolutely no improvement whatsoever with specific things that are feeling better with energy, losing weight, or any of that, I always say, I think it's probably time to get a complete iron panel. And I go into why iron is so important and crucial to thyroid health. And also, I know how estrogen affects everything too, but because they have such similar symptoms, it's really important to me to have a checklist so I can say it's definitively not this. It's definitively not that. That way I know what I'm focusing on and I can get even deeper. It's just that checklist that I like to create when I'm working with clients and for myself as well. So example, let's say a client comes to you and they've said, I just feel so tired. I can't seem to get through exercise. I can't seem to lose weight. I just feel horrible. And you're like, okay, so your thyroid numbers look, they look okay. They could be better, but it could just be a sign that you're struggling somewhere else. So let's look at your iron. And then they bring you a ferritin level. This is the one my doctor would run. Well, that doesn't tell you anything. That's another lab that people just send you a storage iron test, and you don't really know what's in the blood, what is being used, what does the body have as far as access to iron. So I always tell them to get a complete thyroid panel, a total. You're getting saturation in serum and all of those things. I also tell them, have you had your estrogen checked? And I believe the Dutch test is the best test. Not everyone's going to be able to afford it or do it. So if you can even just get a progesterone to estrogen ratio on a client, you can see if they are too high in estrogen and too low in progesterone. Talk about achy joints and fatigue and insomnia and all kinds of problems that all mimic thyroid problems. So you could say, looks like you have estrogen that is 300 to 1. Estrogen to progesterone is very, very high, right? We always want to have more progesterone than estrogen. So flip that ratio around. We're looking for anywhere from 300 to 100 of progesterone to 1 ratio of estrogen. And almost 90% of women that I have worked with, it's the other direction, okay? So if that's the case, there's so much that we can do to help them reduce the estrogen load. There are xenoestrogens and there are phytoestrogens. All right, so let's say iron is good, estrogen is good, which it usually never is. What's going on with the adrenals? Okay, so then we get a diurnal saliva panel and we see that their adrenals are all over the board. Okay, so then we would say, oh, I can see right here, this is why you're so tired. Your circadian rhythm is upside down and backwards. So what that allows you to do as a coach is to say, here are some resources we're going to focus on calming down the adrenals. You know, let's look at how we can give them a break so that the thyroid can pick back up a little bit. So do y'all see how this is important? When things share significant symptoms, we could attack each one of these, but then the next thing you know, you're going to have a complete table, kitchen table covered in supplements. You're going to have all this money going out. You're going to have a client that feels overburdened. Their liver's going to become overburdened with supplements. They're going to get overwhelmed, and they're going to get more tired and more stressed out. So for me, reducing stress by understanding which piece do we need to focus on, one bite-sized piece at a time so it's more digestible, reduces that stress level, because when we're under stress, our thyroid tells us we're under stress. All right, so let's scroll through here, and I'm almost done with this section. Let's see here. I've already mentioned clearing up the confusion of the thyroid and the adrenals being the problem. I'm going to skip through. Let me make a real quick comment here that two of the easiest things a person can do that has hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's is to get rid of gluten and get rid of soy. Okay, so I'm a gluten Nazi. That I am full on admitting that I think it's horrible for everyone, and maybe you can soak them and sprout them and do all of that stuff and make your bread out of your ground bread, whatever. But most people are not living that way today. Most of our clients are living in a pretty much fast-paced lifestyle with families. So it'd be easier just to remove the inflammatory property of gluten out of their life, and soy as well. Gluten is number one in my opinion. And just, you know, let them know that there's a tight molecular mimicry between gluten and the thyroid, where the body thinks, if you're eating gluten, the body thinks that is a foreign invader. Same thing that happens to the thyroid. They think the thyroid's a foreign invader, so the attack just continues. So I don't say, stop eating it right now, get rid of it. I give them a nice, easy way to kind of ease into a lifestyle of not having it, but it is that important. It is 100% one of the first things I tell people to do is get rid of it. I've had clients get rid of gluten and their antibodies dropped and they felt amazing. And that's all they did, because they were so intolerant and had no idea that because they didn't have celiac, they thought they could continue to eat it. And it was the only thing that stopped everything from happening to them. All right, so let's see here. We talked a little bit about adrenal glands. Let's stop on iodine for a minute, because there's a lot of confusion about iodine. So yes, we absolutely have to have it. I mean, the thyroid uses it to make hormones. We must be adequate in iodine. The problem is, and you know what, let me read this first so you understand it. So thyroid cells are the only cells in the body which can absorb iodine. These cells combine iodine and the amino acid tyrosine. Now, you guys have probably heard that people say, take tyrosine if you have a thyroid problem, right? Well, without a combination of iodine, it's not going to do a whole lot, right? So it used iodine and the amino acid tyrosine to make T3 and T4. They are then released into the bloodstream and transported throughout the body, where they control the metabolism, right? So conversion of oxygen and calories to energy and so on. So unfortunately, just remember this. We have literally poisoned our world. Our soil literally has hardly anything in it when it comes to the minerals and the things that we need to survive, like magnesium and selenium and iodine. And I'm a great example of that. My entire family has Hashimoto's. My mom, my sister, probably my grandmother did, probably her mom and her mom, me. And we grew up in the Goiter Belt, what's called the Goiter Belt in Minnesota. So there's a stretch of land up there. I can't tell you exactly where it started or where it ended, just that I lived smack dab in the middle of it, where there was absolutely like no iodine at all in our soil. So even though I grew up holistically and we gardened and I literally ate carrots with dirt on them, I was depleting my system of iodine as I was growing up. So when you think about that, I lived there for 14 years in Minnesota. That's where I grew up for the most part. Think of how much time went by where my thyroid did not get iodine in adequate amounts. And no, it doesn't, you can't put it in salt, and it's not the same thing. Okay, so the other thing about it is this, is that, you know, there's some controversy about it because people say that it can exacerbate Hashimoto's. And if you take iodine, you can have a flare up and all of this. And I've heard that too, and I've experienced it. I went through it before, but then I also learned that happened to me because I was selenium deficient. So many times, you know, when people are told take iodine and we don't know where they are with selenium, that is what's happening there, is that they could be insufficient in selenium, which supports iodine. Okay. So if someone wants to take iodine, they're dead set on it, send them some information that says, make sure that you are sufficient in selenium before you start taking iodine. You know, just look at it, read this article, make a decision based on this, but be educated before you do, because you don't want to feel that horrible feeling of having too much iodine and being insufficient in selenium. It's not fun. But there's an extensive 2-part article done by a man who did an extensive study on this. His name's Mario, and it's pretty mind-blowing. The study is pretty mind-blowing. So, you know, it's something you can look into. I will actually share that with you, Trish. I'm going to write a note to myself, because I think there are a lot of people out there that are afraid of iodine, and I want them to have kind of that other viewpoint of it as well. Okay. Okay, let's see here. What else did I want to tell you guys about? Okay, medications. Let's touch on this briefly. So very common for a client to go into the doctor. You have hypothyroidism. I've called you in a prescription for Synthroid. Come back in 4 weeks and we'll retest your blood. Usually it's 6 or 8 weeks, but it should be 4 because it takes that long to build up in the system. So a 4-week, 5-week marker is a good time to test and see what's happening in the body. So it's not a bad idea. I take Synthroid. That's all I take. Every morning I take a small dose of levothyroxine, and I have good conversion because I know what I'm looking for. I track my blood. I see that my T4 turns to T3. Even with a TSH that's rising a little bit right now, I'm still converting very well. Conversion happens in the gut, the liver, the thyroid gland, and some other tissues of the body. So let me set this up for you. A client comes in and they say, you know, they're overweight, they're tired, they don't look healthy at all, and they've been told they have thyroid problems, and they've been given Synthroid. And they've taken it for, let's say, 6 weeks. And they go into the doctor, and the doctor says, you know, well, your TSH is, it's 2.5, looks good, but they still don't feel good, all right? And then the doctor says, well, you know what, I will run those free T4 and free T3 for you. Well, then those tests come back, and it shows hardly anything. Well, they're taking Synthroid, the doctor gets confused. Why are you not showing any T4 or T3? What's going on here? The body of this client is probably in such ill health that they're unable to utilize, not only metabolize the T4 at all, absorb the T4 at all, but to convert it in a sick gut or a clogged liver, impossible, like next to impossible. So yes, maybe their TSH looks good because it hasn't caught up with where they are yet, but that person is not feeling well because they're on the wrong medication more than likely. Now, I'm not telling you to tell them that. Don't say that's the wrong medication. Which I used to do back before I learned how to practice safely about 6 years ago. I was like, you shouldn't take that. I don't do that anymore. I haven't done that for a long time because it's dangerous. But what we can say to them is, you know what, maybe it's time to educate your doctor a little bit on some other options for you until you get your gut in a better state of health. Notice how I didn't say heal your gut, because I don't use that terminology either. But as we're working to make some changes on your food and lifestyle, maybe you can work with him and see if there's something else that will work better to support your thyroid. The other thing to remember is that the adrenals are under significant stress, okay, which usually they are. Getting a big dump of thyroid hormone is very, very hard on the body because it's not in any condition to handle the energy that's going to start happening if that person is able to convert, okay? So just keep in mind, medication is one of those things that it's kind of a toss-up, and it takes time, and it's not as simple as taking, Pepto-Bismol for a stomach ache. This is something that has to be played with, looked at, tested. Sometimes a little capsule has to be cut into fourths. And it's totally 100% up to the client to determine what's working for them and what's not. So if they say, well, I took Synthroid last fall and it worked perfect for me, but it's not now. Well, guess what? Our bodies change every day. So what worked last fall may not work this spring. So I always encourage my clients, don't get married to a medication and don't get married to a way of life. Because at the drop of a pin, something can happen and change. People need to learn how to go with the flow with thyroid problems. Our clients, with anything really, we need to learn how to just roll with the tide. And when things happen, hack away at them, create that checklist again, and work through it. So that's what one of the powerful things you're doing for your clients is you're actually showing them how to do this for themselves, right? We want them to be able to say, not feeling so great. I think the filler in my medication might not be working for me. I'm going to go back to this meeting I had with Sandy and remember what she said to me, and they're going to be able to take care of themselves. Ultimately, that's the goal, in my opinion. All right. So the rest of this really goes into the HPA axis and so on. Just know that when we're looking at thyroid health, again, I just want you to remember that it's not about the thyroid, it's not about the adrenal glands, it's not about the pituitary, it's what's happening underneath and why these things are being affected. And those things, let me see if I can find the one page here. Hold on a second, you guys. Those things can be Those things can come from, what we're putting in our mouths, what's floating in the air, what we're putting on our skin, whether or not we're sleeping, what kind of stress we're under. Are we exercising so much that our thyroid and our adrenals can't keep up with us, which is common today? Leaky gut. Are we dealing with leaky gut? All of those things can affect it. The one thing that I want to make sure and point out here also is that methylation is one of those things it's really high on the radar now with coaches and with doctors and functional practitioners. It's not just about MTHFR though. That is the one thing that's getting all this attention, but I've been listening to Chris Masterjohn lately and learning another deep dive underneath methylation, where it's really not just about taking folate to methylate properly and have a healthy thyroid. It is about so much more. It's about amino acids, it's about glycine, it's about all of these other pieces. So when someone says, if you say to them, have you had a methylation test? We're not talking about just MTHFR. We want to know, have they had a 23andMe? Have they done something to take that methylation process further? Have they looked at their glutathione? Do they have enough glutathione to remove high oxidative stress, which affects the thyroid? So as you can see, there's so much more to talk about with this, you guys. It's not as simple as a 45-minute presentation, but just know that it's about what we're eating. It's about what we're putting in our hair and our skin, what kind of air we're breathing, our relationships, our stress level, how we see the world around us and perceive our lives to be. And it's even about unaddressed traumas in our life that we are storing in ourselves that is causing problems. So just remember, get underneath the problem. Never put a Band-Aid on the thyroid. Find out what's happening, dissect it, create your checklist, and lead your clients into this understanding in a way that gives them the tools to do this in the future for themselves. So how's that? Good?
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
All right.
You got questions?
Yeah. Do you guys have any burning questions? I know that Kathy asked, what would you recommend to prevent thyroid disease? I don't know if that's a quick answer or not, but
it is actually, it's a real quick answer because look, what causes thyroid disease? What I just said, environmental toxins, what we're putting in our mouth, what we're breathing, don't do any of that. Like, really? Eat food that doesn't toxify your body, use organic lotions and sprays, deal with unaddressed trauma, and speak your mind. Don't hold your emotions in. See the world with different eyes. And I don't mean rose-colored glasses. I mean with reality glasses, and understand that not anything is an emergency. What's the worst thing that can happen? I really, truly believe that stress perception is what's killing us today and making us sick. Honestly, I do believe that. I am all about changing my perception of what my life looks like today to have a healthier life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm definitely going to pick up some of the threads that you touched on in the essential oils portion. So
okay.
I'll just transition if that sounds good.
Yep. I'm going to mute.
Okay. And I'm going to try to share my screen here. All right, so essential oils for thyroid support. Basically, my goal in this section is to educate you about how the oils can be a resource for you to help you get results for your clients. They are not a cure-all. They are not a magic pill. They do not cure, treat, or heal anything. Just like eating vegetables does not heal you or treat you or cure you. This is part of a holistic protocol. And Carmen talked about the food and the supplements and the stress reduction and moving your body and having good relationships, speaking your mind. There's, it's a whole puzzle, but essential oils are too good of a tool to just leave them out. So I wanted to give you more information about how they can be used, because they're powerful plant-based compounds that really do work. The science is there, the data is there. They're thousands of years old. They're referenced in the Bible. This is not a new fad. And with just a little bit of coaching, they're really easy to use. And so for me, in my health coaching, it's been a true gateway for people who do not want to talk to me about getting gluten out of their diet. They do not want to talk to me about changing up their exercise. They're just not there yet. So we may want them to be there, but they're not. So what do? I give them some quick, easy wins. I get them using some essential oils. They start to feel better. They get inspired. They get motivated. And then they say, all right, now talk to me about that gluten thing. Now talk to me about the yoga thing or the meditation thing or whatever. And that has happened so many times that it's been really interesting to watch. And it also can give people a quick win at the beginning. Like Carmen said, they get hit in the head with this diagnosis and it's so overwhelming. Well, let's give them an easy win right up front while they're wrapping their heads around everything, because they have so much to overhaul about their lives. So let's just go ahead and help them get a really good night of sleep. You know, some things like that can make such a big difference. And I know, you know, some coaches say, you know, I'm not sure about oils because people think it's a magic pill. That's just an education thing. And you just make sure you're telling them that this is part of your protocol. This is not a magic pill. This is just one very effective, powerful thing you can do along with the rest of the coaching program. So that's what this is basically about. I am assuming you have a basic understanding of what essential oils are. If that is not the case, then just get with me later and I'll catch you up about exactly what they are. And just one more quick note before we move along. This is non-brand specific presentation. So I just want to make a note that you need to make sure to understand that quality is a huge issue in the essential oil industry, because just like supplements, they're not regulated. So there's a lot of junk out there with synthetics and with pesticides, and there's just a lot of junk. So while we're not going to talk about brands today, if you need education on how to do your research and look for a high quality brand, you can get with me later on that. But I would rather somebody use no oil at all than use a low quality oil, because they could hurt themselves. So that's really important. I'm also not going to get into the details of using essential oils, but just in case you're kind of new to it, here's a very quick overview. They can be used aromatically, which means breathing them in. They can be used topically, which means putting them on your skin, or they can be used internally. For the purpose of today, when I talk about oils, I'm talking about aromatic and topical. The discussion about internal use is you know, a different topic for a different day. So if you're interested in that, I can talk with you about that later. But for today's purposes, we're just talking about breathing them in and putting them on skin. Typically, the big question I get asked is, okay, I'm going to put them on my skin, but where do I put them? There's a lot of different places you can put them, and obviously it's going to depend on the purpose of what you're using them for. Are you using them to support your thyroid? You put them on your thyroid. Or you're having a stomach ache? You put them on your stomach. That sort of a thing. But you can use reflexology points, and here I'm showing the foot and the hand, and I circled where the thyroid points are. People don't have to use them right on the reflexology point. They can just put them on their body, and it's good enough. It doesn't have to be so super specific. But if you're if reflexology really resonates with you, and you want to tell people to put them in a specific spot, this is a resource for you. And I did also want to mention dilution. There's some oils that can go right on your skin from the bottle and it's no problem. There's other ones that will cause too much irritation to do that. So what I do is I tell everyone, dilute everything. Let's just keep it nice and simple. Diluting it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't make it less effective. We want to make sure nobody ever has a sensitivity or a reaction to it. There's no proteins in there, so a lot of the experts say there's no way to have a true allergic reaction to it because there's no proteins in there. The experts debate that a little bit, but for the most part, it's not common for someone to have a true allergic reaction. It's either not common or some people say impossible, but they could be sensitive. So what you want to do is have them just dilute it, go low and slow, and it's really very straightforward and simple. And I have some more information there about diluting, but I'm not going to get into the real details of that, but it's pretty straightforward and simple with just a little bit of coaching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about oils, how they can support overall health, and then I'll talk about using oils to help get relief from thyroid symptoms, and also how to detox your environment and reduce your toxic load using oils. Don't feel like you have to scribble notes furiously to write these all down. I can send these to you in an email. I'd rather you just be able to listen and absorb rather than trying to write down all these different names of oils. And again, I put the names of the oils, and these can be diffused or breathed in or put topically diluted. You can support the health of the thyroid directly with oils like frankincense, lemongrass, myrrh, and clove. And obviously, like Carmen said, the thyroid is not struggling in isolation. All of the systems of the body are interconnected. So if you put a little bit of oil on your thyroid, it can only do so much. You have to really address the health of the whole body. And the oils have an intelligence of their own. So that's kind of the part of the beauty of them, is that someone can put them on and then they'll get to work, and your body takes them in, and your body's brilliant. It knows what to do. It knows how to restore health and balance. And this is just one of the implants that help it to do its job. So just kind of giving you an overview. This is not comprehensive, but you can use oils to help balance your hormones. You can help oils to help your body detoxify. You can use them to help get a really good night of sleep, because obviously if someone's not sleeping, how motivated are they going to be to have be going out and exercising, to making big changes with their food, to be having, you know, those conversations with people who are having tough relationships with, and all those big things. You know, you need a good night of sleep for physical and emotional reasons, and oils are huge with helping people to get some good sleep. They're a resource for helping you have a healthy gut, you know, along with the other things that Carmen talked about, and even things like seasonal support. And people have really itchy eyes and runny noses and they're coughing and stuff like that. The oils can be a resource to help them get some relief, so they can be out living their life and doing their things, and you know, doing all the activities that you're coaching them to do, rather than stuck in bed suffering. For example, I have someone who was stuck in bed with migraines every single month. And she came to me saying, I really want to try essential oils for this. And the coaching that I give is, there's absolutely oils that will help you with that. And they'll give you some relief, so you can do the deeper detective work to figure out what is causing that migraine in the first place. Because the oils are not the answer. You know, they'll get you some relief, and let's get to the bottom of it once you start feeling a little bit better. And that has worked beautifully for a lot of my people. Now, as far as thyroid-related symptoms, Carmen mentioned that just about anything can be related to a thyroid issue. So when people are having symptoms, let's get them that relief again, so they can just start to feel a little better, which is very motivating. If they start to feel just a little bit better, they will love you. They will keep coming back to you and listening to you and saying, tell me more, coach me more. They will be inspired and open-minded. So I'm just going to cover a couple, but just to give you a sense, oils can help people who have an intolerance to cold. You know, like my feet and my hands are always cold, my butt's always cold. Oils can be very warming to the body, and they can help with that. Likewise, there's other oils that can be cooling to the body. So if someone's, you know, having hot flashes and their body's too hot, the oils can help to cool them off. If they are chronically tired, just can't find enough energy, oils can help with that. They're digesting any concerns they have there. Oils for that as well. And again, you always pair it with information with the rest of the puzzle pieces, but the oils really do help people. A lot of emotion stuff, Carmen touched on this. There's a lot of emotional impacts on, you know, physical symptoms, and thyroid problems can cause things like excessive worry. And Carmen said that, you know, relieving stress is probably the #1 thing she would do first. And the oils really can help with that. They cross the blood-brain barrier. They impact your brain cells. They impact your mood. So there's, you know, once you're an oil junkie like me, you get really into the details about which oil for very, very specific emotions. But it's not even necessary to get to that level of detail. If someone just wants to get started with oils and utilizing them to manage emotions, there's oils that are very calming, like flower oils are very calming. And there's other oils that are very energizing, like citrus oil. So depending on what they need, there's an oil for that. And then there's even an oil like orange, which is adaptogenic, and you just take it in and it helps restore balance, whether you need to bring it down or bring it up. So that's really pretty amazing. The oils can help with skin issues, you know, dry skin, anti-aging stuff, a very wide variety of skin issues. The oils are a resource for that, managing your weight. So as you can see, there's just a lot of things oils can help with, and I just want to make it clear too that people do not need to have every single oil. The good news is the oils are super versatile, so they can get a basic set, and that will take them really, really far. So keep that in mind too. You might see me listing a lot of different oils, but one oil could have 20 different uses, and you just hook them up with a couple basic oils and they're good to go for a long time. Now, earlier we also talked about the root cause of a thyroid issue could be coming from the environment. Maybe the toxic load coming in is just too heavy. This happened to a friend of mine. She was doing the hard work of figuring out her thyroid issues, and the first thing she did was detox her house, and her thyroid numbers improved. And of course, she continued working on everything else, but that was the first step that she took, and it really helped a lot. So look around your house. You're using cleaners, air fresheners, candles, laundry products, pest control. In all of these areas, if you get out what you're using and read the label, your clients do this, it's a chemical soup. I mean, if they're buying anything from the store, it's probably a chemical soup. They can make these things themselves at home very inexpensively, very, very easily, or they can look for products available at retail which have pure essential oils in them instead of the chemicals. And a lot of people just don't know. It's just a matter of bringing that awareness, because they just don't even realize how toxic their environment is. They just sort of, everyone's busy. They grab what they need. They don't even think about it. Same thing goes for personal care products. I think this is getting a lot more awareness because of companies like Beauty Counter being out there. But, the FDA says, well, this lotion or this makeup or whatever, it has an allowable amount of a synthetic or a chemical. But the problem is, who uses just one product? Nobody. Most women use about 17 products. You're using your lotion, your soap, your shampoo, your eye cream, all your different makeup products. And when you put all that together and all that junk together, it's just too much. So in terms of personal care products, luckily we're getting more and more options available for clean versions of all these things. And the oils in these products can provide all of the benefits. I have a great graphic that I can share with anyone who's interested about beauty swaps. Here's a synthetic version, and here's the oil that does the same thing in terms of skin health and aging concerns and all that sort of stuff. So I just want to make sure you're aware of this so that you can pass it on to people, that this is becoming, easier and easier to do. And sometimes it's a great place to start, just to clean up the environment. There's a lot of different ways to integrate essential oil coaching with the rest of your health coaching. I have a zillion different ideas on that, and I won't go through them all today, but it can be just quite simple. It can be saying, use essential oils as part of your wind down routine. Here's a couple oils you can use, turn on your diffuser. It's as simple as that. It could be as simple as making up a roller ball, like you see here on the left. Here's the things you put in it, roll it on your body once or twice a day, make this part of your routine. It's really very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be frustrating. So we went through that kind of quickly, and I'll check the chat just in case. Looks like there's some things going on here. But feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions for either of us. I know we're already at 2 o'clock, but feel free to chime in if you would like to ask a question.
I just typed something here just to kind of give people an idea about how powerful oils can be topically or transdermally. I was just saying, people get off cigarettes with a topical nicotine patch, right? It goes right into the bloodstream. So the other thing to think about is, when people are using hormones, one of the places that when women go through menopause that functional medicine doctors tell them to do is put the hormones in their mucosal lining of their vagina or their rectal area, because it's highly absorbable. So it makes complete sense that an essential oil put on your body, like I have an oil I use on my throat, on my thyroid, that putting it where it makes sense, that makes sense, right? Because it's going to go straight to that area. It's just like the mastoid bone for your parasympathetic system. Putting an oil that speaks to the parasympathetic nervous system, put it on your mastoid bone, makes sense. It's just, how could we not know this, right? How can we not know this? So yeah, I was just kind of wanting to make that point, but it's overlooked because people think it's hooey, but it's not. It's not. We've just replaced all of these great traditional methods of caring for ourselves with conventionally minded thinking, really.
And what's amazed me the most is the testimonials that came in. Like I started sharing oils with people just here and there, a family member, a close friend or something. before when I really didn't know that much about them. And then the red flag was for me when a friend of mine got really mad at me, and she said, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? She was using lavender for something, and it really, really helped her. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't want you to think I was trying to get you to like buy a product, because I think in the health coaching field, we tend to be more comfortable selling services than products. But she said, you needed to sell me this product. I need this product. And so that was a real eye opener for me, just to as a good reminder, like people do sometimes they need an oil, a supplement, an herb. And the fact that they can get it from you is actually quite helpful to them, because you've done your homework, you've done your research, you've cut out all that work for them, and you can teach them what to do with it. That saves them a lot of time and a lot of angst. And just now that I've gotten more and more into it, and I actually forgot to introduce myself, but I'm now a certified essential oil coach through the Essential Oil Institute with Dr. Josh Axe. And this has become a pretty big part of my health coaching business. And the testimonials just come in again and again and again. And people just say, this totally was a game changer for me. It's a game changer for my kid. And they're just set on a completely different path because of the oils, that they would have had no awareness about any of these health or wellness issues if they hadn't heard about the oil. So it's been a major gateway for a lot of people. And the testimonials, just how well they work, just keep rolling in. So they're pretty powerful.
Yeah. And what you were just saying a few minutes ago about the, not people like needing it. Why would you hold back that? I want you guys to think about this too. Like at Mindshare this year, one of the main speakers up there was talking about how by not selling or pitching or whatever words you want to use to people, something that can help them, and you're doing them a great disservice. It's like saying there's this doctor's office and they can cure your problem, and then them saying, come to my my place, but the doors are locked, right? You have all the knowledge inside of you. Why would you not share it and give it? And people who are turned off by selling, I don't know what they're doing with their living, because everything we do is selling, right? For the most part, it truly is. It's you're ethically behind what you do, And so, I know the brand that you work with, and, I'm very picky about the things that I promote and support. And if you are that person and you do your work and you find that authenticity and that integrity behind a brand, then you sell it proudly. And if people don't want it, then they won't come to you, and that's fine too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But we need to stop worrying about what people think about us selling things and stuff. Everyone's selling. Everyone's selling. Yeah. Stay away from the ones that are selling the crap, and go with the people that are selling the things that actually make a difference.
Yeah. And whether you're selling a product or an ebook or a program or your time, as a health coach, we have to sell people something, or else this is a hobby, it's I know we tend to draw people who, feel uncomfortable with the whole sales aspect. And for me and my team, I feel like it's just a mindset thing. And talk a lot about just being service-led and heart-centered, and leading with the education and the desire to help people. And they do end up needing to buy something because they can't benefit from the lavender if they don't actually have the lavender. But just like with any part of health coaching, there's such a good way to sell whatever it is you're wanting to offer in a very genuine, non-pushy, authentic way.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's not like you're going to their house and holding a gun to their head and saying, get your card out right now. You need to buy this. We're all in charge of our decisions. Yeah. I love that. And I'll have to say, I remember when I was little and I would get ear infections. I would get, I had just battled ear infection. I lived in Minnesota. It was always cold. The wind was always blowing. And I remember my mom would punch a hole in a garlic capsule or a hole in a vitamin E capsule, and she squeezed it in my ear. And so that was, because we lived out in the country, and getting a doctor there at 2:00 in the morning wasn't always the best thing to do. But both of those things are high in antioxidants, high for immune support, all that. Even though the immune system's in the gut, it treated the inflammation and got me through the night. It's really no different, right? You're opening a capsule to topically apply something, and it worked. It worked. It stunk, and I hated it. I'm like, I don't want to smell it. To this day, I can't stand the smell of vitamin E. I can't stand it. When I take it, I have to hold my breath. It's like PTSD.
Your mom was ahead of her time.
She was way ahead of her time. She was. Yeah. So that's probably why I'm back where I am today. I think that's a good point that you make, though, when we're doing this with people that are raising their children this way. It's not only the fact that we're not pushing our beliefs on food and stuff on them. We're giving them a nice, easy transition. I mean, how easy is it to put an oil on your wrist or your ear? But we're also, I think what oils do, it opens up the mindset that there is an easier, more basic way to get back to what we used to do before people were introduced to all the things that made us sick. Because I know when I smell my lavender and my circadian oil before I go to bed, I automatically feel calmer. I feel like the world around me just doesn't even exist anymore. And I love to rub it all over my dog, puts him to sleep. Yeah. It puts that feeling of traditional homeness to my life. You know, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. All right.
Anybody else have any questions? I will send everyone a follow-up email with the pieces that Carmen said, the intake form. And I think there was an article you wanted to share.
Yeah.
And I'll also include Carmen, as she mentioned, is opening up her Institute for Functional Health Coaching this fall. It's going to be off the charts awesome. And if you need more, help learning how to coach really effectively, being able to coach people with any kind of issue, you need a good process. You need to learn from someone who's real and who's been in the trenches and who can completely change the way that your business is operating. This is for you. And there's a million testimonials, but now that I've known Carmen long enough, and she's no longer just an online friend. We're actually have met in real life friends.
Yay!
I just don't think there's
not often enough.
There's no one more in the industry more genuine and more heart-centered. And I'm just excited for the coaching industry because, as you guys know from my Coaching Collaborations Facebook group, my passion is also just to grow all of us and to grow the industry because the world needs us so badly. And my own sister's a doctor, and I love her, but it's even more clear to me how much that we are needed and how much value we bring. And I think that when we can all raise each other up, we can disrupt the healthcare industry because it has got to be disrupted. It's not working. It's not working.
No.
Let's help each other in any way we can. And it's going to get there. And we're in at the right time. We're in at the ground level. If you're ever frustrated or feeling unsure, just stay the course. This is going to be huge, and we're all doing this at the right time. So
right, and you're going to be doing an essential oils training 101 for the Institute, right? Right. Yeah. So just know this, you guys. There's a dip your toe in the water section of the Institute that is absolutely no one's doing it. Don't tell anyone either, because no one's doing it, and I want to bring it to the world. But I'm doing a dip your toe in the water section in the Institute, and I'm probably just going to open it not only just to students, but to all health coaches, where you can pick specific trainings that are like Essential Oils 101, and you can learn about it and whether or not you want to bring it into your practice and why it's beneficial, or Hormones 101, or business landing pages, launching, environmental toxins, trauma. I have almost 25 experts signed up doing, and these are big people here. I'm not talking about just somebody who graduated last week from an oil class. These are people who have done the work, and they're going to be teaching people, like a dip your toe in the water. You want to put oils in? Well, I don't want to spend $1,000 on a training course. Well, how about this, just an introductory price in a training? And then you find out, and it leads out to Trisha. I mean, it's going to be a big deal, you guys. It's going to open the doors for coaches in a way that's affordable and makes sense for us. So I'm super excited about it. Yay.
Yep. One-stop shopping. No need to go to 10 different places anymore. We go one place.
Yeah.
Everything we need. It's going to be totally amazing.
Yep. Awesome. And you and I need to talk pretty soon about that. So message me when we're done, and just let's get it on the calendar. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. I appreciate you having